Well, joining me now as we take a look at reforming Nigeria's electoral system, especially overcoming voter apathy and rebuilding public trust in the process, is Dr. Sam Amadi. He's the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. He's joined by Ezenwa Nwagwu. He's the executive director of Parent Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on the news tonight.
Thank you.
We do appreciate your time. Let me begin with you, Dr. Nwagwu, because we heard Dr. Amadi speak earlier in the day at that event. When the former Minister of Transportation, former Governor of Rivers State, puts the blame at the Nigerian people to say, if you do not come out, voter apathy leads to election rigging, isn't that too convenient to blame the people, or do you agree with him?
Well, I would want to accept the conferment of the doctorate that you...
I beg your pardon, Mr. Nwagwu.
It's deserved.
Mr. Nwagwu, perhaps it's in the future.
Thank you so much. I think that sometimes one of the things that politicians like to do is to drop templates for talking points, if you like. They enjoy dropping talking points. And part of what you saw, though true, the people have a share of the blame. But in my view, nearly 70% of the behavior or misbehavior that we see in our electoral process is actually orchestrated by the politicians. So whether you're talking about voter inducement, whether you're talking about manipulation of and inducement of even electoral officials, it's the politicians. So whether you talk about ruling parties or opposition parties, they are always seeking for dubious advantage. And part of why they do that is because they are not in any conversation about reforms. And the challenge that I have with Nigerian politicians is that they cause the problem and then pose to be the ones to present a solution. If you've been in government for the number of times the man that was speaking has been, if they had laid a foundation, a clear foundation for, proper election administration, we probably will not even have some of the challenges that we are having now. I also don't like how this rebuilding trust. I think we should be improving. It should be about improving trust. That we've made shifts. We've made quite a lot of shifts.
So there have been improvements?
There are quite a lot. It may be incremental, but we are not where we used to be before.
Great, but the numbers don't reflect that. In fact, the numbers are the reverse. When you look at the outcome of those who decide who rules them. For instance, case in point, Anambra State, although that has increased from the 2021 election where we had just about 10% deciding who the governor should be, we had maybe perhaps 15, 18% this time around. But let me come to you, Dr. Sam Amadi. You talked about cynicism. You said it's not the judiciary, it's not the flawed judiciary, it's not the political parties, but cynicism. What is driving that cynicism? Is it rigging? Is it voter buying? The dubiousness of the political office holders, the politicians, as Mr. Nwagwu has said?
Okay, first, I think the system has two elements. One of them is the obvious one, low voter turnout. I think globally there's a problem with civic participation in election because of trust of politicians and process. But I'm looking at cynicism in a more deeper sense, which is the fact that people give up. The elections cannot be free and fair, okay? Or at least comparatively. Ezenwa made a point around improvement. So cynicism would say nothing will work. Okay, so 2023, there was a crisis. Whether you explain from the perspective of technology glitch or some of us who believe deliberate sabotage, okay? Anyhow, there were improvements. We saw things worked. So if you don't have a structured idea of problem, you generalize and say, we can't get a free and fair election. And so what worries me is when I hear people say, oh, Ezenwa perhaps says, I want to go and run for governor of Imo State. People are going to say, Ezenwa, don't run because you're not popular, or people, the message will not be strong. They will say, the machine, nobody can defeat Mr. X. Or people assume that it can't beat Tinubu, it's Jagaban. They're not thinking around, is he working? Is his policy delivering? Are people happy with him? Are you going to have a smarter strategy? So that's cynicism, that because the institutions are captured, which may be well true, because institutions are not working well, like you heard people talk about security, everything. So it forces a sense of fait accompli. And that's dangerous for democracy, even for the nation building. So my call was to say, look guys, yes, we might have an INEC we don't trust, and I don't think we should trust anybody. We may have judiciary we don't trust.
Isn't that a challenge in itself?
No, I think we should actually distrust institutions and allow them to prove otherwise.
Okay.
So the debate around is Mr. Abe good about. The point I'm saying is that you have the power. I'm saying, look, wake up and say, is there a problem with electronic transmission? Do we need to be there physically? Is there a problem with politicians who manipulate this system? Can we checkmate them? Because every of these crises can be dimensioned. There's a reason why it's working. There's a reason why it can be overcome. So my call is to say, if a society is crestfallen, everybody gives up. Everybody says there is this behemoth called election rigging. There are this machine. Somebody says somebody came forth and became first. Are you going to challenge him and win that man who moved from? Those kind of fear factor is wrong. So I agree with those who want to say we've made progress. And I'm not saying rise up. Believe that you can actually win elections. You can defeat incumbents. You can use the system, work it well, smartly, engage, have your agents, collect results, push INEC, litigate, argue, force more accountability and more openness, you get the result.
That in itself sounds like a Herculean task for anybody to do just because they want to get into office. Perhaps that's another challenge. But Mr. Nwagwu, do you get the frustration of Nigerians who throw their hands in the air, fait accompli, as I said, that, you know, my vote doesn't count. I mean, decisions are made, so my vote will not count. You said there have been improvement. But when we continue to have minority decide who gets into office, does that not question the legitimacy of our democracy? Is that not a challenge?
Well, the first thing is that you're not voting means you voted. You just did not vote for the, you know, see, you can hoist whatever regime of excuses that you want and say, oh, your votes don't count. And the phenomenon of voter inducement and vote trading that you see, what could be the trigger? The trigger is that something is changing. The trigger is that the politician now understands that he needs the voter to come out physically and vote. Before, he would probably, and what I see is that there are quite a lot of people who just get hung up in Nigeria of 2003 and 2007 and say, oh, you know, nothing has shifted. Listen, in this Anambra that you are referring to,
yes,
the election was not just 2025. There was election in that state.
By-election.
No, there was also election in 2013. There was election in 2017. There was election in 2021. Now, what was the figures in those elections? They were abysmally low. The 2021 you talk about was not an election. It was war. What happened in Anambra in 2021, contextually speaking, cannot be referred to as election because you had non-state actors who were determined to frustrate that election to the point that even, you know, foreign observers and even some observers refused to, you know, run out of Anambra, you know, literally speaking. You couldn't even get collation and returning officers who were going to be taken from Cross River State to come to Anambra to come help to conduct that election. So that election held in itself is significant and it has to be registered to be so. Then in 2025,
yes,
you had 20%, some say margin of error, 2022 voter turnout. In 2021, the winner of that election won with 100,000 votes. In this election, he won with 400,000 votes.
422,000
votes.
Yes.
But that's not where we want to be.
Exactly.
But we must not also ignore that there is a fundamental shift from what it used to be historically for Anambra. And in the times where you used to have large voter turnout, you agreed that you were not having elections because you could be going to where you are voting and then the announcement will be made. The results of where you are voting will be made. Today, whether you like it or not, incumbents are losing election. 7 governors in 2023 election lost to return to Senate. And these are incumbent governors. You can't dismiss that it doesn't mean anything. You can't also say that if you have a relatively diversified National Assembly in terms of the number of, in quote, opposition political parties that are there, forget that they are returning back to where
that's why you say in quotes, we get it.
Yes, they left in the first instance. Who conducted those elections? elections can be competitive. When elections become competitive, when incumbents begin to lose elections, you must also agree that there is a little shift in that. But the number that you are talking about, nobody can be held responsible for your lack of interest in how you are governed.
Indeed, you also fall back to what former Governor Rotimi Amiche said. Gentlemen, stay with me. Let's take a story. The Anambra State governorship election is seen as an illustration of the low participation of citizens in the electoral process and the implications for democracy. Well, our correspondent Emeka Moye tells us more.
In the 21 local government councils saw the incumbent governor defeating other 15 candidates. 16 political parties took part in the election, including APGA, APC, PDP, Labour Party, Action Alliance, and African Democratic Congress. Although Anambra State has an estimated population of 6,358,311 persons, INEC data shows there are 2,788,664 registered voters in the state, but only 598,229 persons were accredited, representing 21.4% of participation. While this marks a slight increase from the 253,388 voters, which was less than 10% as observed in 2021 election, observers and Democrats say the figure is ridiculously low and reveals a massive voter apathy.
There was poor voters turnout at this election at most polling units we visited. Number 2, arrival of materials. Materials arrived many polling units between 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Number 3, voters' endorsement. This election recorded unbelievable vote buying across several polling units.
Anambra residents speak on reasons for this voter apathy.
When you see low voting power or apathy, it has nothing to do with the people, it's just fear. Don't forget that the issue of stay at home, the issue of non-government, the fear has not left people. It's still within the people. So that is why you are having this, until that problem is nipped at the bud. People will come all en masse to vote.
Before the election, INEC cleaned the voters register, but I'm not sure there was thorough cleaning of that voters register. So I believe that we are not up to 2.8 million voters in this state.
The ripple effect of former elections, particularly the immediate past 2023 election, that people complain that their vote didn't count, could be one of the factors why many people did not come out. Another thing, if you ask me, should be the over-militarization of elections. I can't see why 45,000 policemen will be in a state for a governorship election. And not only that, many roads were blocked.
Basically lost faith in the system. You ask a lot of people if they are going to vote, they will tell you that it is pointless voting because their votes will not count. And this is due to past experience that they had. And this is an area that the authorities or those concerned should work on.
As the 2027 election season beckons, observers say this persistent disengagement should embarrass the country's leaders into implementing effective and sustainable electoral reforms to safeguard Nigerians' democracy from further instability. The appeal is for urgent reforms, enhanced civic education, and a renewed effort to rebuild public trust in the electoral process. Emeka Moye, Arise News, Awka.
Well, thank you, Emeka. I still have with me Dr. Sam Amadi. He is the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, as well as Mr. Ezenwa Nwagwu, Executive Director, Parent Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with me. Let me come to you, Dr. Amadi. In trying to understand why we still have this, despite the improvements we have seen, which we acknowledge from technology that has been introduced into our electoral system, to the numbers, even though not significant, for instance, in Anambra. Is election outcome related to performance of governance? Can we link that?
Okay, let me put it to
Or is that even a factor?
Yes, first, another election, the major issue here is vote buying. I've not heard much about logistic failure or INEC not uploading IRF like we had in 2023. I think about 90% of the results were uploaded. So in terms of election management, you could tick INEC very good pass, okay? But the people now say, okay, if there is open market for votes, how much credible is that process? And I said, in my lecture, I said there are two other moral, what I call second order morality. The first order morality for me is that the actual votes count free and fair. That means even if people are seduced, induced, as long as they're not coerced, I want to see the real numbers. And I think that's where I focus more on. The second one around, people being seduced by money. It's like, for example, some people like ethnic, they vote ethnic, they're influenced by religion, they're influenced by physique, they see on television, they say, I like this man. So it's a second order problem candidate, but what causes it might be a multiple of social factors. Anambra, for example, has had a virus of vote buying across the year. And it's lamentable because a state that is purported, that does well in terms of literacy, is doing well in terms of income, you should expect more probity in elections. But that's a problem we can manage through, for example, if voter education, maybe some law enforcement can come in terms of the level of suppliers of this conduct. But a real point isn't what made about improvement. The problem is that outcomes may not match. And this is what I mean by that. Election has process and has finality, which is decision making. Now, if INEC had in this election somehow juggled with the figures and has a different figure, everything we have done has been truncated. Like in Edo, where we saw problem with finishing. Here, it seems like we saw process and finishing. INEC did their job fairly well. Votes were bought at a scale, industrial scale, but that's not really INEC, so to say. So what is driving voter apathy is three things. One is a sense of governance. People are not really connected. Accountability is low. If people think that voting does not count, doesn't matter for their life, they probably will vote less. Two, if the outcomes seems incredible, and this is what made the point when we're offline, that elections don't need to be credible only when incumbents lose. But people use a measure of deserved incumbents who deserve to lose. And when they don't see that, if it doesn't align, then they suddenly lose faith. Why do we bother? They're going to rig the election. But if we see INEC perform off-season, build up to 27, and we see credibility, and then the politicians really go out and talk to the people. I went to the East, voter registration. They're not registering. And I went and spoke to the church, everybody. I said, look, and they're saying the one we did was the outcome. I said, no. So we have work to do to make people realize that they have the agency to say, look, even if INEC is not working, why don't you engage INEC? Why don't you challenge INEC? Why don't you identify the problem area and force INEC to change? If the security is not working, you see, so they push on politicians, and I get back to Ezenwa point. The politicians are not just corrupt, that they don't even want free and fair election, and that's why I won't bet it on government. They are also not active in fighting for public good. All
right, Mr. Ezenwa, I'll come back to you because you highlighted voter registration. It's something President Bola Tinubu talked about today when he met with his community engagement team. And let's bring that report. President Bola Tinubu has directed a nationwide campaign to sensitize Nigerians on voter registration as part of efforts to boost civic participation ahead of the 2027 elections. Here's the report. President Tinubu spent part of his Monday receiving briefings from his community engagement team and the leadership of 7 regional development commissions in separate meetings. After meeting with the community engagement, the senior special assistant for the Northwest says the president charged them to scale up voter registration awareness, stressing that the exercise is non-partisan and aimed at strengthening civic duty.
We discussed about the need for voter registration, so that this is what part of the thing we're doing across the 6 geopolitical zones. We're sensitizing our youth, those that have not gotten their voters card, to make sure they go and get their voters card. Insecurity
remains a major concern in the North Central region. According to the president's aide, historical mistrust, land grabbing, banditry, and illegal mining are fueling violence across communities of all tribes and religions.
Being able to discuss with Mr. President, and we have gotten Mr. President's assurance to maintain peace and bring lasting solution to the insecurity in the North Central region.
In the Southeast, challenges linked to the long-running sit-at-home directive remains a top priority.
We can't, as a region, be sitting at home every Monday and allowing others to decide our fate. We are also waiting for him to also address the other issues that are raised in Southeast.
One of the biggest delegations Mr. President has just bestowed on the Presidential Community Engagement Team is the approach of peacemaking and appeal. So we will be coming down to your regions to appeal to the major stakeholders of the community and let them know that we will do everything to safeguard our country.
In a separate meeting, the President met with the Minister of Regional Development and leaders of the 7 regional development commissions, including the Niger Delta Development Commission.
First, to introduce the leadership of the 7 regional development commissions to the President. And that's why both the chairman and the managing directors were involved in the meeting. And in the process too, we also told the President some of the challenges and the progress that we have made so far.
Challenges were raised, including funding, with the President promising to look into them. Updates were also given on ongoing projects in the Northeast, while the NDDC confirmed all its projects are based on community needs.
Today, if you come to the Niger Delta, the peace we enjoy today in the Niger Delta is as a result of the people getting what they need. Today, there is no community in the Niger Delta that you say there are no projects going on in the Niger Delta. Even in far riverine communities where before now projects, it was difficult for contractors to go to. I can assure you that contractors are now working in those riverine communities.
So how much of a role does voter registration play in all of this? That and more when we return from this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Newsnight, and let's get back into our conversation with Dr. Sam Amadi and Mr. Nwagwu. Thank you, gentlemen, for your patience. Mr. Nwagwu, let me come to you as we wrap up, and I'd like to lump this up. The President talked about voter registration awareness, scaling it up nationwide. How much of a role does that play? And then in proffering solution as we leave, how do you carry out solution when... And who carries out the solution when those who you say benefit dubiously from the process are the ones to carry out the reforms?
Well, Adesua, I've been on this for a while. Yeah. I think that we have, as at today, we've added, what has come from Anambra has put us around 93 point something million voters. Registered voters. Yes. And then as the voter registration process continues, you add much more. So what drives that? That is also participation. People participate in voter registration. That is participation in the electoral process. But what is the driver? The driver first is community collusion. Communities get into overdrive around voter registration because they are told that the amenities that come to their community have something to do with their voting strength. So they ambush registration officials and up those but the law has made it that's why you find after registration you still find people not collecting
their cards,
their PVCs and all the rest of them. So voter registration and turnout are not the same thing. There is a lot that drives voter registration. Your voter's card is a means of identification, free means of identification. International passport is expensive, driving license is expensive. This one you just queue and you can use it for as a means of. So all that is what drives, voter registration. But turnout for election, what has happened that a lot of people are not paying attention is that the politicians are calculating right now the number of votes that they need, and they are putting the money. Check Edo, check Ondo, check Osun, check Anambra, you see that the figures are coming low because it is paid for. If you have to pay 15,000 naira per vote, for instance, and the other person pays 20,000 naira per vote, you don't want people coming out. If they come out in their number, and that connects to what Dr. Sam has been saying, people should come out. If you come out, you make it difficult but you don't sit in your your room, and then you start saying, oh, elections don't count, they have already taken the decision, and then the young people are the ones who do the most analysis. They sit in their homes, they are watching what is going on in IREF, they want to know what is going on in IREF, they don't want to go know what is going on the ground.
And even add to the numbers
the
on
PVC has something to do with the cost of bread. It has something to do with the cost of electricity, where Dr. Sam managed for several years. This PVC that you are seeing, if you play with it and discontenance is impacted, then you will not be able to get the results that you're looking for.
Dr. Sam Amadi, the same question to you very briefly. How does any reform succeed when those who benefit are the ones to carry out the reform?
That's the problem. The problem is that the people who benefit may not execute, but the point is that no person has perfect rationality. They face pressure. So if there's a strong demand and it's going to be cost benefit, they're going to lose something, they'll act. My last word would be this, that I think Nigeria I'm more concerned with three things, and that's what I said in that meeting. One, peaceful, fair election. Minimalist argument is that it helps with social stability and conflict management. If people are sure that they can win power through a process that's fair, nobody will resort to self-help, to violence. And Nigeria is becoming very over-pluralistic. You see different groups, Christian, Muslim. If people know that if they work together, they can win the election. But if people believe that they can't win power through the ballot box, then there's a sort of violence. And looking at Burkina Faso, Niger, I think it's the interest of the ruling elite to invest a little bit on credible election. We are running out of time. INEC is doing well, politicians have to do well. Let's work together. And then the people should come and see this as survival. I don't care about numbers now. Let's have credible election first, then let's move to the number gradually.
All right, very well said, and I must say thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts on this matter. Dr. Sam Amadi is the director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, and Mr. Ezenwa Nwagwu, who will get perhaps a doctorate degree sometime soon, is the executive director of the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa.